Good morning, fifth grade. So I would really rather be at school today and do the read aloud in person. But as you know, I have been identified as someone who is a close contact to somebody who tested positive for COVID-19. I feel fine. So I'm going to record my read alouds so that you can at least hear me read it each day. So our new read aloud book is All Rise for the Honorable Perry T. Cook. I hope you enjoy it. I feel like it's a pretty interesting read. So let's start right in. Chapter 1. So the title of Chapter 1 is Teeny Tiny Surprise, Nebraska. Big Ed is about to tell it again. He greets all the new ones. He sits them down, tells them about the place, and gets to know them as quick as he can. Being a welcomer is part of his work at Blue River, which is the biggest thing you'll find in the teeny tiny town of Surprise, Nebraska. Big Ed asks, "Are you from around here?" The new resident shakes his head no. He sets his dinner tray down across from us. The answer is almost always no, because Surprise is a long way from most places. You know why they call it Surprise? Big Ed asks. It's because this little nowhere Nebraska town gets an impressive amount of snow. But the snow is not the surprise. What you find after it melts, now that's the surprise. Things you never knew you lost. Of course, I'm talking mostly about folks on the outside. Here on the inside, well, most of us have nothing left to lose. Or it can feel that way. Big Ed laughs. He sounds like a harmonica. Then comes his coughing. He has to pull himself together before he can go on. But spring comes, and on the outside they find all sorts of things. Baseballs and dog bones, that favorite pair of garden gloves all flattened down into the mud and grass, maybe even a set of keys. And don't we all wish we had the keys around here, huh, Perry? Big Ed gives me such a nudge, I almost spill my milk. The new res, that's short for resident, listens nicely enough. I wonder how long he's going to be here. Maybe not so long. Depends on what he did. Depends on what's been decided. Sometimes I hear. Sometimes they tell me. I never ask. I just hear things sometimes. Big Ed tells the new guy, You'll see so much snow outside these windows, it'll make you forget that the grass is green." He always pauses for several seconds right there. Then he says, "Unless, of course, you're doing a cat nap." A cat nap means a short stay. Big Ed leaves a little airtime, waits to see if the new res feels like talking. He might tell him about his sentencing. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. This guy dips his head like he's talking to that bowl of turkey chili on his dinner plate. "I got 8 months, he says. He doesn't say what he's in for. Meanwhile, he keeps eyeing me. Big Ed claps a hand on my shoulder and tells the guy, "This here is Perry T. Cook." I put my hand out. The guy waits. He looks to the right and left where the supervisors are standing. He knows he's being watched. And he's trying to figure out what is allowed. There are rules about contact. Handshaking is okay, I tell him, as long as it's brief. Big Ed says, "You can listen to Perry. He knows it all." I push my hand closer to the new res. Last try. Finally, we shake. "Name's Wendell," he says, and I don't know if he means that's his first name, last name, or only name. Mom's rule is I can call the adults whatever they tell me to call them, but she wants me to add Mr., Mrs., or Miss to the front end. For Big Ed, well, I just added Big, and I guess nobody ever corrected me. It was such a long time ago. He's the only res at Blue River who's been here longer than Mom and me. "What's a kid doing here outside visiting hours?" the new guy wants to know. "I call him my morning sun," says Big Ed. It's an old story. "Perry makes sure we all wake up on time." "The kid will be here in the morning?" Mr. Wendell looks confused. New ones always do until it dawns on them that I live at the Blue River Co-ed Correctional Facility here in teeny tiny Surprise, Nebraska. A correctional facility, 5th grade, is basically another way to say jail. So they're all living in jail right now. From behind the serving counter in the kitchen, we hear Eggy Mon dishing up the last trays of supper for the evening. He thinks all food deserves poetry. Tonight, he calls, "Get your gobbling good order from south of the border, with a hunk of cornbread or white rice instead." Mom comes by with her tray in her hands. "Perry, down the hatch with that milk, pal." She sounds impatient, and she has left more than half of her supper. It's strange because she doesn't waste food, and the turkey chili isn't that bad. I take my milk carton in both hands and gulp it back so fast my throat aches. Bad manners, but Mom needs me to move along tonight. Something's up with her, and I don't want to add to her trouble. Neither does Big Ed. He gives me a pat on the back and says, "Good man, Perry." Earlier today, Warden Daughtry called Mom into her office for a conversation. Whatever that was about, it put Mom on a tilt. Now it's one of those weird days when everybody knows something is going on. Everybody, that is, but me. "I want to have one more look at the map of the middle school with you before lockdown," Mom says. She glances at the gray clock on the wall, and so do I. We have to pay attention to the time at Blue River. At 9 p.m., I have to be in my bedroom next to the warden's office off the Upper East Lounge. Mom has to be in her room down at the end of the hall on cell block C. Chapter 2. All Rise is the title for Chapter 2. It's 6:23 a.m. I scoot forward and put my lips close to the microphone of the prison PA system. I always begin quietly. Warden Daughtry comes to wake me every day, and she is gentle about it, so I do the same for all the residents at Blue River. "Good morning," I say in my slow, low voice. "This is Perry at sunrise. It is Tuesday, the 6th of September. If you need a reason to bother getting up today, well, it's probably not the weather." "Tut, tut, it looks like rain." That's the quote of the day. That comes from Christopher Robin, by the way, and if you don't know who he is, then maybe it's time for you to get some literature in your life. Mrs. Buckmuller and the Bucking Blue Bookmobile will be here to restock the leisure library from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And don't forget, she takes requests. I glance at Warden Daughtry. She smiles as she leafs, let me turn the page, through a stack of papers. She likes it when I give literacy a plug. The clock on the wall above her desk reads 6:26. I lean toward the mic again. The news on the outside is it's the first day of school in Butler County. That means I'll be gone all day. Don't miss me too much. The good news for all of you is waffles are popping out of the toasters down in the caf. Scrams are in the pan. They're even letting some fruit cocktail out of the jar. Choice of beverage as usual. Remember, there are no knives in the flatware trays at Blue River, so get used to that spork for however long you'll be with us. I lean away from the mic and whisper to Warden Daughtry. That last part is for the new intake, Mr. Wendell. She whispers back to me. I'm sure he will feel most welcome now. She points to the clock without looking at it. She doesn't need to. The warden is so precise, you can almost hear her ticking. 6:29 a.m. Time for me to get louder. I grip the mic in my hand like I'm about to fly a plane. Okay, residents of Blue River, if you're not up by now, time to get up. The finish has to be big. It's the same every day. I take a deep breath and bellow, all rise. I turn off the mic and hustle toward the door. I stick my head into the hallway and listen for morning release. 6:30 a.m. Locks disengage. Doors click and creak. Toilets flush, and the residents yawn themselves awake. Foreman Joe is coming up the hall from Block A, which is one of the men's wings. Good morning, Fo Joe. I started calling him that when I was little. R's tripped me up when I was first learning to talk. I used to call myself Powie. Right now, pardon me, how's things, I ask, but I don't really want to know right now. And Fojo knows it. Things, he says slowly. Well, let me see. I chew the inside of my lip and wait. He's being slow on purpose. Things are fine, but I'm wondering what they fed you all for dinner last night. Was it burritos? Because he stops and pinches his nose, fans the air. That morning release had some fire on it. Ooh-wee! Turkey chili, I tell him, with beans. Then, before he can go on, I remind him, hey, Fojo, it's the first day of school. Oh, yeah, he says. Thus the new sneakers, hey? I look at my feet. Can I go? I ask. To school? Fojo, he knows what I want. I am ready and facing Block C. I'm crouched into a runner's stance, but I have to wait for permission. It's one of the rules. Fojo, please. Perry, he says. Yeah? Are you still here? I am not. I am off like a flash, sprinting toward Mom's room at the end of the hallway on Block C. Chapter 3. Jessica. Jessica Cook liked to be out of her room before Perry reached her in the morning. Maybe it was silly. Her boy knew that his mom was locked in at night. He knew that she had to wait in her room for morning release, just like any other resident at Blue River. Release. The word ricocheted between her ears. Not morning release. Get out of prison for good release. Jessica shook her head. She tried to will herself not to think about it until there was something definite. Trouble was, she couldn't think of anything else. She'd been awake most of the night, and the thought stuck while she did her morning push-ups, crunches, and hamstring stretches on the person-sized patch of floor beside her bed. Jessica had coached at least 100 residents through the release process at Blue River. That was her work here. And it was a little bit twisted considering she had not had the pleasure herself. But that day should be coming. She had served nearly 12 years of a 15-year sentence. She could apply for parole in just a few more weeks. Finally, there would be a process. But up until yesterday, she'd had every reason to think, every reason to hope, that come the frost of late October, she could be a free woman. She'd been coaching Perry for the day that they would leave the only home he had ever known. But now, this glitch. The warden had received word that there was a wrench in the works. No details just yet. Do not lose hope, she thought. She propped her door open while she brushed her teeth. Foreman Joe usually let Perry head down immediately after the all rise. Her boy would be sprinting, and he was fast and getting faster. Minimum security meant that she stayed in a narrow dorm-like room, not a cell behind bars. This was not a crusted prison from a late-night movie. In fact, Blue River was a campus with natural light in some of the common areas and not so horrible colors on the walls. Those were the good things she told herself about the place. She was locked up. Hard fact. But being assigned to the facility in Surprise had been a little spot of good inside a blurry nightmare of bad. The years had been bearable because her boy had lived with her for 11 of them. Such arrangements were unheard of. So lucky. Still, she longed to get him out there and begin that new life on the outside, when her time and Perry's time could be their own. Jessica spat toothpaste into the saucepan-sized sink at the back of her toilet. She ran the faucet to wash her hands, then quickly pulled her hair into a high ponytail. She checked her bed again, though she'd already tucked it tight as a springboard. A surprise room inspection could come at any time. And if there was one thing she hated, it was being reprimanded in front of Perry. Jessica towed the line. She heard her son's sneakers slapping along the low-pile carpeting, pounding his way toward her. She broke into a grin as she jumped out into the hallway. Perry was arriving, nostrils flaring like a racer and blue eyes wide beneath the cap of dark hair. More and more he looked like another boy she had once known. He was beautiful, she thought. He was hope in a new pair of cross trainers. Jessica opened her arms. Her boy leapt, and she caught him for the swing around, which she was pleased she could still manage so far. Then, with Perry back on his feet again, the two exchanged good mornings and started down to breakfast. "How are you feeling about school?" she asked. "Nervous and excited." Perry rocked his head side to side as he spoke. Jessica tucked her fingers into his hair for just a moment. "I'm feeling the same way for you," she said. "But some things won't change. Miss Maya will still pick you up here. Now that you're in middle school, you'll see her during the day." "Yep," he said, and Jessica felt her son give a little shrug beside her. They'd already gone over it. Perry was his quieter self this morning. She should let him be. "I'm glad Zoe is on Team 3 with me," Perry offered. "Same homeroom." "I'm glad too," Jessica said, and she was. This was where Perry's not-so-ordinary upbringing had worried her. There was the stigma of the prison, but also, for a kid, he had a strangely adult social circle. The nearly impossible mix of ragtag and colorful, half-lost and fate-tossed, nonviolent residents at Blue River. Meanwhile, his mother, had never been able to meet the one young girl he called his best friend on the outside. When Perry had first mentioned Zoe Samuels, Jessica had pulled Maya Rubin aside and said, "Please tell me she's not imaginary." Maya, Warden Daughtry's niece and Perry's main escort on the outside, had promised that yes, Zoe was real. She had also remarked that Perry was as good a friend to the girl as she was to him. Jessica felt relieved to know that he had a friend. That part hadn't been easy. A lot of questions might be asked. Rumors might be whispered behind the slender back of a boy who called a correctional facility home. Well, the day was coming, or was supposed to be coming, that she and Perry would both leave Blue River. "Mom." "What? Is something wrong? Something you can tell me?" No, I'm just going to be a I'm just never going to be a yay September mother," Jessica said as they passed the warden's office. "I'm only lending you to the school because I'm nice. I'm really going to miss you today. I've got the camera. I'll bring you pictures." "Boy, that was the best gift ever," she said, and not for the first time. The camera was a hand-me-down. The benefactress was Zoe Samuels, who had somehow ended up with two. The camera had been a boon for a locked-in mother who ached not to be locked out of those hours her son spent on the outside. Jessica and Perry accidentally brushed hands as they walked. He looked up and gave her a comforting half-smile. Her boy had not seen her in her tiny locked room this morning. She noted this as a win. It was one of the ways Jessica preserved hope. You do a lot of that when you have 15 years to serve. Parole after 12, if everything goes right. So that's the end of chapter 3, and tomorrow we'll start right in with chapter 4.